My name is Peter, recovered alcoholic. I'll be back.
First day with these hands.
There you go.
All right, let's try this again. I'm sorry, Peter.
We'll go to commercial. Is it good?
Yeah, we're good. Go
Good
ahead.
deal. All right. Glad to be here. Okay.
Perfect.
Good night.
Tip your waitresses.
June 23rd, 1988 is when God sobered me up. Grateful for my gift of sobriety. I do have a sponsor. Spoke to him today, and he's been an important influence in my life. In fact, all my sponsors have been a huge impact in my life. I do have a home group in Boca, No Problems, Just Solutions. We meet there on Wednesday night at 7:30, and I'm sponsoring just a whole bunch of men. It's interesting, they come in waves sometimes, and sometimes it's dry, no one's calling. And just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And the phone's been ringing a lot lately. So I've been able to be of service in that capacity. My assignment tonight is step 7. And there's just so much to this in 6 and 7, a paragraph each. And you can go right over them and say they're not that important. How significant can they be? Where the rest of the work is got, pages. If we look at step 1 alone, if we include doctor's opinion, we're talking about 53 pages just for one step. And then we get to 6 and 7, which are crucial. It is a huge turning point, and they have a paragraph each. Bill expands a whole lot on 6 and 7 in the 12 and 12, which if you haven't taken a peek at it, you ought to. It's done beautifully in there. But before I got there, I've shared this so many times. Before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1988, after 7 treatment centers, I've shared often, I didn't have a clue who Bill and Bob were. You would think after 7 treatment centers and watching in treatment Father Martin's Chalk Talk and the H&I folks coming in and the therapists doing their individuals, that at some point I would get an idea who Bill and Bob were. There weren't even photos of them. I don't recall seeing the 12 steps or traditions on the group room, and it was a long time ago. I just don't recall. So when I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, with 7 treatment centers behind me, I not only don't know who Bill and Bob are, I don't know even what the steps mean. The traditions, they could have been written in Latin. I don't know anything. And we live life forward and understand it backwards. I'm grateful for that. I'm glad I didn't come in here with many preconceived ideas about this book, our fellowship, the steps, or anything. I was, for the most part, a clean eraser board. And it was intimidating when I got here because it just seems to be everyone was like 3 steps ahead of me. I don't mean steps, but like just 3 steps ahead of me. You guys were talking a language I was unfamiliar with. And a lot of slogans being thrown around, which sounded nice, but I have no idea how to apply this. I'm trying to make it till tomorrow morning without getting loaded. And a lot of things seem to be above my pay grade. But the fellowship itself was a Band-Aid on an open wound to someone who was clueless. I can't tell you how many times when the meeting would break up and I had to walk back to the sober house or maybe ask someone for a ride, which was almost like asking a marriage proposal. Can you give me a ride? It was just so difficult for me to do. I'd rather walk in the cold weather than to ask for a ride. I would just pray that someone would say, hey, you want to come with us? We're going for coffee. Even though I couldn't pay, at least I wasn't going to be alone until I got back to the bunk at the sober house. And there were many times sitting in a group this size and sometimes larger, where I felt like I was the only one in there. I still felt like the square peg in a round hole. I would hear your story and say, yeah, that's exactly like me. I totally identified. I am alcoholic. I identify with the stories. I identify with the struggles, the awkward upbringing many of us had, and the trauma we talked about. But I still feel different because I'm wearing my kid brother's clothes. and you guys looked nice and fancy and shiny. And you guys had cars and jobs and relationships, and you're able to put $1 or $2 in the bucket. And I don't. I have lint in my pocket. So it kind of made me feel outside myself. But the men and women here brought me in. And they sat me down and poured me coffee. And as my wife always says, loved on me until I got to a place of being okay, sort of in my own skin, and not feeling so self-centered walking in the room. But at this point, I still don't understand how deep alcoholism, those roots go. 7 treatment centers. I'm making meetings. H&I brought meetings in. They would qualify, give testimony, all these things. And I still don't know how deep the roots of alcoholism are going until I sat with the sponsor and he opened up this book and little by slowly broke down and had me identify and understand what the book was talking about when they talked about this allergy, when they talked about this obsession, when they talked about this spiritual maladies, if you will, a sense of separation from God. You know, I got all of that. I got that. And would break down doctor's opinion and had me identify with the first 9 pages in Bill's story before he gets into his solution, and take a look at the mind in 23 to 43. The body and the mind in 23 to 43. And I'm getting this. And then we talked about suffering from alcoholism without ever putting a drink in me. I didn't think that was possible. I didn't know that. I didn't know my alcoholism doesn't come in a bottle of whiskey. I thought if I go to AA meetings and just do the steps, I'm great. If I just do 90 meetings in 90 days, I'll levitate in a week or two. It's going to be great. And I'm making a lot of meetings and I'm not great. I'm not okay. I'm not even good. I'm vibrating still. And with a good sponsor, I got to take a look at exactly what I'm up against. And I like to bring up step 1 here because I got to a point on the way in here and then bottomed out again in here. To come face to face with the monster of alcoholism, that I can't do this alone and I need help. Because it wasn't a conclusion of the mind. It was something deep down in the soul that told me we can't do this alone. I need power. I need the numbers around me. I need people who are insightful to navigate me through this book and get this conscious contact with God, to have an awakening to God, because without it, I'm done. And that kind of desperation and that force feeding of humility is what meets me again in step 7. It is a turning point, because what can happen here, and I've seen it happen many times, you finish 5, you put the car on neutral, just take a peek, check the boxes on 6 and 7, because I don't feel that desperate anymore. The wrinkles are out of my belly. I got a little job, got some money, got a little girlfriend, and I don't really need to go to any lengths. In fact, any lengths is on my terms now, not what the sponsor says. And I'm taking what I want, leave the rest, and I'm leaving a lot and taking very little. Because I'm feeling good. I start to worship my emotions. I start to worship how people think about me and what they say about me, and images come back. It's called pride. I need to look good and sound good around everyone. And that sense of, oh my God, if I don't get this, I'm done. I need to touch the bankruptcy of my strategies, if you will. That without God, I'm screwed here. Without you, I'm screwed. And I approach that, I look at these defects of character, and it's really important that I get a really good understanding of what they are. That I don't just go into 6 and 7 blindly. There's a seat right here, man, if you want to sit. Tell me how you really feel. All right. Where was I? I was getting drunk somewhere.
Your pride.
After step 5, yeah, thank you. I got a pretty good idea what's eating my lunch, what these defects or shortcomings are. I don't know all of them. In fact, each time through the work, I got some linging around, and I discovered these new ones. But the first time through the work, I got a pretty good idea of what these defects or shortcomings were. And it's the usual, all out of the 7 deadly sins that Bill talks about in the 12 and 12. And for me, fear was the biggest culprit. It came in a lot of different forms, and it's still there now. I don't think I ever get to a point where fear is no longer a part of my life. I just listen to it a lot less. But I do remember showing up to my sponsor and beginning this work and inwardly praying that this works, because I knew if it doesn't, I'm in trouble. And when I bottomed out with about 6 months in Alcoholics Anonymous, it was December 22nd, 1988. I was living in Minnesota, and I want to drink again, because the pain of doing sober without any spiritual muscles, without any steps, without any God, if you will, in my life that I can experience, sobriety was getting really uncomfortable and, quite frankly, painful. And I was going to go drink, and I was driving this thing called a Rent-A-Wreck, and I'm looking for the first bar, and I don't want to go in that bar, I'll go to the next one. And if I see guys dealing, I'll cop whatever they got. I'll just go to a liquor store. And it kept getting pushed back, and I kept driving. And I remember praying to God, please get me out of this one. I'm in serious trouble. Now, that wasn't a conclusion of the mind, because we live life out and understand it backwards. What was happening was, with no steps, with no real relationship with God, with no sponsor that I was locked into, I knew nothing about this book, but what God did was show mercy for me and kept pushing the bars back and the liquor stores back and got me in front of this guy, Joe Tees, in front of him. He lived in Cottage Grove. And I told him my tales of woe, and he told me, he asked me a question, where are you with God in the 12 steps? I said, when do you start the steps? He says, when you stop throwing up, you're late. I didn't like that answer. I was disturbed. I was in his house. I maintained some sort of being a gentleman. What I wanted to tell him was ugly. I wanted a hug and sit down, we'll pour some coffee, and you'll tell me more about your tales of woe. He didn't do that. He stopped the bleeding immediately. And although he did disturb me on the question of alcoholism, I heard him. I knew there was more to be done, but I was desperate again. And again, that's the type of desperation I needed to approach. Is my life worth saving or not? Or not? Is my life worth saving or not? Because here I am in step 7, and I'm looking at things that are going to take me back to a drink. They're called defects of character. And I'll experience them while I'm stone cold sober, going to meetings, having commitments, and speaking all over the place. I could be loaded with defects. I just put on the AA game face. I know what to say. I know how to behave. I know how to sound glossy and shiny, wow you with information until I get back in the car and it's on me again. And I'm not sleeping at night, and my illness has gone underground and resurfaced in other areas. But I'm not telling you, I got a lot of secret lives going on until I walk into the meeting, and then I become Moses. And everything's good. I'm helping newcomer and doing all the things we're expected to do. But that's not the same guy who gets in his car and drives home or puts his head on the pillow at night. I'm barking at the wife, I'm barking at the kids, I'm doing that. I'm restless and discontented. I'm full of fear. I got pride leading the way. I want to be the big shot in AA. I need to be, because I feel so lousy about myself. My sponsor, Mark Houston, said, we don't want to be liked, we want to be worshipped. We're so insecure. And anything less than that, we get resentful. I identify with that when I'm not spiritually fed. And the thing about this, another overhaul that I approached when they said this word humility, humbly asked them, humbly. I can't make myself humble. The steps will be ego deflating, we know that, but where does the spirit of humility come from? First of all, I don't even know if I have it when I got it. You can see it and you can hear it, but I'm the last one to find out. But the spirit of humility comes from me hitting my head against the wall and realize it doesn't work. It's forged out on an anvil of pain and suffering. That's where humility comes from. Well, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. And I'm petrified. Somebody please help. There's humility. Because anything less than that, I'm going to figure it out on my own. I don't really need a sponsor here. I go to big book workshops and I'll acquire some cool information. but I still lack the power to apply it and keep it going. I don't have the endurance. And the passion wanes after a while. What I need is this power called God where the flame is always lit. And I'm desperate to get it. In fact, I don't even care what the God sounds like and looks like and the road he's going to take me on, because usually I don't know, but I'm going anyway. Rather than being so afraid where God's going to take me, I'm going to hold on to what I know. And that's just sick, but I know that. I know this neighborhood. When everything is stripped, and it happened to me, I didn't even know what was going on. I just know it's terribly uncomfortable and a little nervous about where this is going to go. And I remember looking at the 7-step prayer, and it talks about good and bad. My sponsor set me down. He said, what you think is good might be bad, and what you think is bad might be good. It's none of your business. Everything's got to go. It's a third step all over again. And thank God for good sponsorship who held me accountable. Because as an alcoholic, I'll look for an angle out, an easier, softer way. Even though I like the effect produced by this mind wants an easier, softer way. And it wasn't about just getting rid of this defect and working on an asset. Look at the grosser handicaps. Well, those are the big things. I'll get those out of the way. I'll practice the 10 Commandments. I'll be a good guy. I'm going to be a good guy from here on out. Not good. That's not going to work. That's been my experience. What I need to do is get before God on bended knees, say, you make me a whole new person, uproot me once again, to be made new completely from the inside out. Because saying nice things and behaving properly, that gets old quick, because you got the old me who's still breathing. The whole thing had to come down in order for a new structure to go up, and that's in any length, and it's uncomfortable. I'm going to leave claw marks in a lot of it, but how free do I want to be? Scripture talks about this. There's something I read that everyone who's born is called to a life of sanctity. I mean, that's really raising the bar and will ruffle a lot of feathers. It's even controversial. But I got to think of the mercy and love of God. Why wouldn't he want me to live that life? A life of sanctity. The only thing that gets in the way is this. It boggles my mind, if you will, why we tell newcomers, bring the body and the mind will follow. And we're asking, bring the predator with you. We'll give him coffee. We'll give him a nice warm chair. He'll wreck your life some more. Don't get too comfortable, because you're going to get drunk in a couple of weeks. But keep bringing that guy in here. I think I shared last week that what I've experienced in Alcoholics Anonymous is counterintuitive to the way I was brought up. And I got some good lessons being brought up by my dad. But even the good lessons kind of flew in the face of a lot of what we'll call AA logic. Forgiveness was a sign of weakness. That was brought up. Transparency, unheard of. Men don't do that. That's weakness. You're going to be taken advantage of. Somebody's going to get you. In AA, they tell me to do that. God tells me to do that. How free do I want to be? So it wasn't about just, shaving off a couple of defects and just working on them, massaging them a little bit, practicing that asset. It was about a complete upheaval here. How willing was I? Well, I've learned this. If I'm stuck in 7, I don't need to go back to step 6. I need to go all the way back to 1. And what changed? This was done to me by a few sponsors. Go back to step 1 and revisit where you were in step 1. The desperation, what happened? Have you forgotten you're an alcoholic, Pete? And I would say no, but they said, based on your actions, it looks that way. If you want to know what my belief systems are, just take a look at my actions, not my words. Kind of like follow me around, see what I'm doing. How's my home life? Well, how am I at work? Do I have a prayer life? Have I gotten far away from a prayer life? Have I decided what any lens looks like? It'll get really messy if I try to get into writing an 8-step list without 6 and 7, but actually the first 5 proposals into 6 and 7. It'll get even messier if I'm going out and make amends and I'm loaded with defects showing up at your door when I'm supposed to be going with hat in hand with a spirit of humility, changed and willing to repair. Well, I'm loaded with selfishness, self-centered, self-seeking, and pride, and ego, and gluttony, and so on. That's not going to work out well. I need to be going new. And the thing about making amends, I'm getting ahead of myself. It sucks the life right out of defects going there. When I show up to your door, hat in hand, with financial restitution and admitting my wrong to you, a defect doesn't have a chance to breathe right there. It loses its juice. That's why a lot of folks would, what happened? How come you went out when you really believe in alcohol? Where were you with the amends? I never did amends. Never completed my amends, which means I never entered the world of the spirit. I think I did, because I felt good. Worshipping my emotions, it'll get in the way. How I feel, I'm looking for comfort. And if I wake up and I feel really good, those mornings you just wake up and everything's firing on all cylinders, you feel really grateful about everything, and it's just a great day. And another day you wake up and you're kind of like in your own way, a little lethargic, and you can't focus. Does that mean one day is more spiritual than the next? Or is it just the ebb and flow of life? But as an alcoholic, I'm going to judge because I feel good and everyone likes me. I must be spiritual. And I'm not feeling good and not getting a lot of lows. I'm not spiritual. When I pray and meditate and helping other people, my feelings don't really equate into spirituality. In fact, God's grace doesn't equate being spiritually fit. Am I chopping wood and carrying water? So I took a look at step 6, which we discussed last week, and I come to this step 7. And I think I touched on it last week, where the opening line to step 7 is, when ready, we say something like this. What's interesting about the book, I remember Mark showing me this. Bill didn't write, when ready, we say exactly this. It says we say something like this. In the third step prayer, he says at the end of it, the wording was, of course, quite optional. What we're looking for, what he's looking for, and what God's hoping for is the intent. Help. If I'm on bended knees and all I can come up with, and it's true, help is a whole prayer. It'll beat saying the Lord's Prayer just by saying the Lord's Prayer, because I have to say the Lord's Prayer when it means nothing. So it says, when ready, we say something like this. And when we look at, if we put the third step prayer here and the 7-step prayer here, you can see how they crisscross. We're doing the same thing over again. A little bit further down the road, a little bit more specific. And it begs the question, when is ready? When ready, we say something. When am I ready? What does that mean? Truly, when I'm really willing to have God put his hands on me again and completely turn it inside out and mold me into the way he sees fit. And my hands are off to have no say-so into this. None of my business. My life is none of my business. I made that agreement in step 3. I'm willing to play by rules other than my own. I did that in step 3. He's going to complete this deal right now. Because there's an amen at the end of the 7-step prayer when we see it. There isn't an amen at the end of the 3rd-step prayer. It's interesting because we're going into the searching and the uncovering and discovering and eventually discarding. And when we finish the 7-step prayer, he kind of closes it off with a period called amen. For now, I'm done with the searching. For now, because I'll be going back in. And my job is now to go out and repair the damage out of my effort to live life on self-will, me running the show. It says my creator, which is my God. Bill will use so many different words to say God. Czar of the heavens, Father of light, things like that. Is my creator. I'm now willing you should have all of me. He says good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. It's not about making me a super duper AA guy or rich or popular. I'm signing a contract here. God, I'm going to work for you, to be of service to you and to others, maximum service, to fit ourselves over and over and over again. It's about, putting on God's armor and going in the trenches and working with drunks and practicing these principles in all my fairs. How the heck am I going to do that if I'm loaded with me? I got to get far away from me as possible. The death of self is successful living. Yeah. My Creator, I'm now willing to shed of all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding, is the amen. The strength to do your bidding, complete 8, 9, 10, and 11, to grow in understanding and effectiveness, to do the nightly review, the 10-step navigation going through the day, and then go pass it on, give the entire thing away, which flies in the face of how it was brought up. Give away some, but don't give away everything. And AA say, no. Give the entire thing. Anything you've accumulated, Pete, give it all away. Even if somebody walks away from it, doesn't like what you have to offer, give it to the next person, because God will replenish this like an aqueduct. Comes in and out. Doesn't come from me, comes to me. Now, how free do I want to be? And so when we got out of step 5 and we took the hour quiet time, we went into 6 and 7. And what all my sponsors, some people go right into 8, 9, that's cool. But they all had us sit for a few days with the 7-step prayer. And the thinking was that the flavor of their recovery was, let's see if you're really willing. Let's see if anything else comes up. If there's anything blocking you that you discover. And so we would take the 7-step prayer into prayer for a few days. And then Mark used to have us meditate on the 7-step prayer. Just say it to yourself and be really clear what we're about to do here. That anything, there was a guy, Don C., who would say, the ego will get you where you think you're good. I had to take a look at that. What am I owning that I do really well? Because the ego get right there. I'm on God for the things I know I'm not good at. For the things I'm good, I'll take some credit. Look at me, I'm great. Here comes the ego. Don gave us this, Don P. gave us a prayer. God, please reveal to me what I'm unaware of before it gets to me and kills me. I'm pretty clear on defects, but I don't know them all. Currently, when I look back on my journey, a lot of the things I came in here with have been kind of like ice in the sun. You can just want to weigh in God's time, in God's way, with God's power. Some go quick, some go slow. I'm not in charge of that. God's been incredibly patient with me. I need to be patient with him. Some of the things I wanted to go, he just tweaked a little bit because he found them useful. But currently, what I sometimes deal with is that old 4-letter word called fear. And I'll be transparent with you. I feel about 30, 35 years old, but on paper I'm 66. I squeak a little bit. That back of mine, it's a week now. I threw it out last Tuesday, and it's still not right. There was a time where 2 days and I'm back and running again. I take medication for the heart. I had AFib about a year ago. Now you got to watch the blood pressure, really watch what you eat. All these things that I heard old people talking about was going up. I'm doing it. I get around my peer group. We talked about, what doctor did you go to? It's very depressing. I used to wake up in the morning and just, sprint over to the coffee pot. Now I walk very slowly to the coffee pot and hoping I don't throw anything out on the way. All kidding aside, but sometimes I got this massive migraine. I think it was a migraine I finished the talk Sunday night. Mary and I walking back to the car and I get blasted out of nowhere. I got home, shut the lights, shut anything that's on, ice pack, Advil, Aleve, you name it. I couldn't shake it. It was awful. And as an alcoholic, we don't get headaches, we get tumors. And I'm lying in bed, and Marion came over to pray with me, and I was transparent. I said, I'm afraid. My fear's got me right now. I look at my age, and, there's a lot more road behind me. There's a lot more God in front of me, but I get a little nervous. My company, thank the good Lord, is doing okay. I make a good living, but I'm not a millionaire. And how come that didn't happen? And when is that going to happen? And I look at my own mortality. And July's coming up, and I lost my dad. July will be 3 years. I think about that. I thought he was completely invincible. And he's gone. Am I next? Am I on the on-deck circle? And I think about that, and the fear is I don't want to lose this AA life. I don't want to be apart from my wife, my brother, and I get scared. And I try to think of positive, happy things. That doesn't work with me. I need to go to God and say, Father, I'm terrified right now. I'm almost 38 years sober, and I'm terrified right now. And it's only 11 o'clock at night, and I got to wait till 5 to wake up. That's about a bunch of hours, and how am I going to do this? And so sometimes we'll pray together, and sometimes Mary and sound asleep, and I'll go in my prayer room, and I've wept on bended knees. God, I'm afraid. I love my life too much. It's almost interesting. I'm very confident deep down in here that the trends, the going to the other place is going to be lovely, but it's going there that I don't want to let go of because it's all I know. And so that word fear, I very much in touch with. When I was coming into it was fear. What do you think of me? Am I going to get liked? Do I look like an idiot? Do I sound like an idiot? I need a job. She's pretty. I don't know how to talk to her. I'm 29 years old. I don't know how to talk to a girl. Oh my God. That kind of fear. Nonsense. All nonsense. So what I have found is God will drive me back to him in a lot of different ways, and sometimes it's uncomfortable. And sometimes my own self-will and my own mind drives me right into a wall, and I'm right before my God again. I can't tell you how many times I've been in my prayer room at 2 o'clock in the morning because I'm afraid of something. And I'm not embarrassed to say that, and I'm not embellishing. I'm not doing it for shock value. It's just being transparent with you. I thank the good Lord. I'm not saying this in a boastful way. I feel like I'm right in the middle of this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. I sponsor a bunch of men. My wife and I have a really, real prayer life, meditative life. We read, we listen, we travel. Everything's about recovery in God. And even with that, my humanness shows up. There was a time in my life I would beat myself up over it. I'm having fear. Why? Something's wrong with me. It's just human condition, the flawed human condition, that I will doubt and have skepticism often with God. The carpenter did in the Garden of Gethsemane. Please make this cup pass. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I want to do this. I'm terrified right now. But your will, not mine, be done. And that's how your will, not mine, be done. If I'm supposed to be in fear right now, then show me what I'm supposed to learn from it. I just don't like it. It's uncomfortable. It comes down to where my relationship with God is currently. I can keep saying, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Then tomorrow's today. Then it's too late. I can die from alcoholism without ever putting a drink in me. And one day God's going to call everyone home. Let me go home with alcoholism, not from alcoholism. Yeah. So I go to this God, and little by slowly, I learn over and over again, I do not have to resolve fear. God, with his power and mercy, will dissolve fear. Because it's interesting, because I'll get a night like that, and I'll wake up at 5 a.m., I'll go pray, and it's like, well, that's past. That was delusion. I was listening to the narrative and the story again. It's the boogeyman in the corner when it comes to fear. I forget that the one who created me, and if I could be so bold, the one who created all of us fears nothing. And he always wins. He doesn't have to get out of the throne for anyone. That's what I'm connected to. The mind wants to discount that all the time. So there's good and bad stuff. There are things I do well. I've always done well. Sports and music, I can articulate in a conversation one-on-one with somebody. I don't have a problem sharing my thoughts, conveying thoughts to someone. It's never been a problem for me. But I need to understand that I don't do that. God does that. And there are things I'm awful at, like counting to 10. I need all of you to help me to do that. In my company, they keep me far away from the spreadsheets and balancing books because we'll go broke in 5 minutes. Numbers and me I don't know how to do that. Tech stuff, I'm useless at. And I am my own worst critic. I talk about defects. I critique me all the time. Not this. This is where I'm most comfortable in an AA meeting or speaking. This is all God. If you don't like to talk, call God, blame him. I do that. So those are little things that lay around. And what I've learned with defects of character, if I let one in and get comfortable, he's got a lot of friends. They beget more. And then one day I go sit down at my kitchen table and I'm sitting at a whole bunch of defects and they're saying, you're late. They've made themselves comfortable. So I'm constantly turning in order to go out, turn in order to go out. If I don't turn in, I'll go without. And so I end this with the 7-step prayer, the amen on the end of the 7-step prayer, and I would sit with that, and then I would begin my 8-step list. I don't know if I share this with you. I have just a few minutes. Years ago, I was going through the work for about the third or fourth time, and I had something happen to me in the hour quiet time going into 6 and 7. My sponsor always talked to me about experiencing the death of self for successful living. It's the self relieving me of the bondage of this guy called self. It's killing me. I'm selfing wherever I go. I need to get unhooked. I need to cut bait with self. And so we need to die to self. And I go through 5, 6, and 7, and I'm getting incredibly uncomfortable, feeling like this turmoil inside. I despise what I was. I'm just not settled. It should be a nice seamless transition from 5 into 6 into 7, and it wasn't. And I got so uncomfortable, I called my sponsor, and I told him what was going on. This is during the hour quiet time. And he said to me, Mark said to me, it sounds to me like you're having an experience, and hung up the phone. And I wanted a whole explanation, but that's what the mind wanted. That's what the ego needed. Oh, okay, I got it. He didn't do that. And later on, when he called me, he told me, this is like, not comparing me to Bill, but when Silky walked in on Bill, he didn't medicate him. He didn't say, let's talk about your childhood and your feelings, Bill. He said something like, hold on to it, it's better what you got, and left him alone. That's what Mark did with me. Mark knew what was going on. My wife was MIA. My ex-wife was MIA for 3 days on a coke, drink, and run, and whatever else she was doing. And when she walked in the house, something changed because I had pity. I saw alcoholism in neon lights. It destroys everything, and it just destroyed this marriage. That's what alcoholism does, and she has no control over it. So instead of fighting and arguing to maintain my manhood, I felt bad for her. I felt pity. And I moved on from that relationship. And God allowed me to go through adversity, an adverse situation with grace and dignity and a calm, a quiet heart, if you will. And the change was happening. You can't deny it when it's happening. You could try to punch holes in it. God is God. We live life forward and understand it backwards. And I look at my life. I know my wife's story. She shared it with me many times. I've heard enough of your stories in here. We cannot deny. You can cut God in an AA room with the dull knife. It's that prevalent. That's my job as an AA member, to pass that kind of miracle that happens to a wretch like me to a guy sitting here with 1 day or 2 days. God doesn't care about what year you were born or what color you are or what political party you like. He's really not interested because he's not losing. He's always going to win. But to bring that drunk to that God and say, welcome, and watch them do it with someone else. I'll never be defect-free. That's clear. My human condition is broken and flawed. I'm the car that drives away and leaves an oil spot. That's me. That's the way God designed it. Greater need for God. This piercing on the side. That's how I roll, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I'm just about out of time. That's all I got. Peace.